Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is January 31st. There's some things going on that we're going to need to discuss, and for some reason, someone's trying to call me right now. So I'm just going to let the beep stop there. By the way, this will be a little different call today. We're not going to get into a lot of detail about our trust package, although I will be discussing it in context with the things I do want to discuss for today. And by the way, I want to mention one other thing as well. Over the last, say, 15 years that Trusts Unlimited has been marketing our trust, we have, for the most part, not gotten into political issues, although when political issues involve themselves and they do affect what we're doing, of course, we need to discuss them. One time in the past, we had a little bit of a problem with YouTube because presumably they didn't like our views on certain issues. Of course, they always seem to have trouble with the First Amendment, but it is what it is. Well, they're back at it again because since the election of Joe Biden, of course, a lot of things have gone south, and they are going to have some effect on us. I'll get into that as well. So now YouTube is got a little different kind of a passive-aggressive way of minimizing the people that listen to our calls. What they're doing now is that when we list our recorded calls, so for example, today is January 31st, what will happen is rather than putting the call up as the last call chronologically, you'll have to scroll down and you'll find it somewhere in October of 2023. So this is unfortunately the crap we have to deal with individuals, intellectual cowards who just want to silence you. Those of us can also remember that we're paying attention, remember the subtle little things they did during COVID when information was released, which they didn't like. Hang on one second. Well, I happen to be at home today, and I keep hearing this weird sound, and it turns out one of our kittens, Fiona, has managed to find her way into my little home office here, and she's making a lot of racket, so I apologize. I apologize for that. But let's get back to business here. Things have gone a little bit quiet right now, and that doesn't surprise me because prior to, and I'm talking now about a change in the exchange rate, release of the lower denoms, things of that nature, prior to that happening, we know things are going to get a little quiet. They're not going to come out and say, next Friday at noon, we're going to flip the switch and all the lower denoms will be there, because obviously they don't want the speculators and those that are involved in the currency arbitrages to have a heads up on that. So it doesn't surprise me that things are a little bit quiet, and actually that's probably a good sign. Why do I say that? Well, let's take a look at what's happened in 2023, or basically over the last year. Well, we're operating now in the second year of a 3-year budget, which is an historic thing for Iraq to do. Over the course of the year, we've witnessed them negotiating multiple international contracts to rebuild their electric grid, their water system, roads and bridges, and even a very aggressive 19 new cities. In addition, they have systematically complied with all of the standards required of the World Trade Organization in terms of their ascension, Bank of International Settlements, Article 8 compliance with the IMF. So that everything's moving inextricably in the right direction. They've also ended the use of the U.S. dollar for the routine purchase of goods and services in country, with the exception of medications and travel outside of Iraq. And they're right now in the position of transitioning to their electronic banking platform, and have already linked with Jordan and in the process of linking with several other countries as well. So Once again, none of this makes sense, and none of this is mathematically possible at a program rate. At some point, they're going to have to increase the value of the dinar. They simply do not have enough U.S. currency to fund their budget or any of these international contracts. That begs the question then, why are these countries involved so intently in working with Iraq? Because they're well aware of the fact that Iraq is going to have to revalue their currency, fair market value for their currency. So by way of an analogy, it's like we're in an airplane flying to our destination. We've arrived at the destination, but we're simply circling the airport waiting for final instructions to land. That's where we find ourselves today. It's no more complicated than that. I can get into all the technical stuff, and I've been doing that for years, but I see no reason at this point to do that. So I do want to discuss the benefits of our Family Asset Protection Trust package, but I want to do it from a different perspective now, from the 30,000 miles up, and talk about, from an historical standpoint, why every American citizen should establish their own Family Asset Protection Trust package. Because history repeats itself, and things are going on in this country that, unfortunately, most Americans do not discern, do not understand the implications of. One example I can give you is 1930s Germany. I remember studying history, and many of you, certainly those of you that are my age, probably studied the same things, that at some point you had the thought, how could the German people not see what was going on? How could all of this happen right before their very eyes, and they don't see it? Well, the answer is what's happening in this country right now. There's a cataclysmic shift politically going on in this country right now. And just as in 1930s Germany, it's happening here. The vast majority of people, perhaps not the vast majority, but certainly half of the country, seemingly either unaware or actually happy about what's going on. Another thing I would suggest you take the time to look into is a very important book. Actually, it's a tome, really. It's such an important book. It's called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, written by Gibbons. And as I said, history does tend to repeat itself. Gibbons gives 3 reasons why the Roman Empire fell. The first reason was open borders and the infiltration of the German hordes. The second reason was a confiscatory tax structure and inflation. And the third reason he gives was moral decay and decline. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds mighty familiar to me. So let's kind of tick through these one by one. Let's start with open borders. Since the election of Joe Biden, and there's no reason to beat around the bush. This is all on him. Upwards of 8 million unvetted individuals have streamed into our country, most of whom are single men between the ages of 18 and 26. Now, if just 1% of that 8 million are bad dudes, that's a standing army of 80,000 individuals in the country inside the gates. That's a scary, scary thought, not only because it's the reality, but it's also a scary thought because half of the country is completely asleep and doesn't seem to understand what's happening before their very eyes. But, of course, history is the consequence of what happens in the moment. And we haven't as yet suffered the consequence, but it's pretty clear where this is headed. Now, in response to all of this, Texas has finally began to fight back, began to put up razor wire in Texas, began to ignore admonitions from the federal government, and they cite 2 sections of the Constitution, that are relevant, are pertinent, and basically the federal government can't get around. The first is the Guarantee Clause, Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. It states that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and or domestic violence. Well, that pretty much says it right there. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. And the southern border is clearly, unequivocally, undeniably under invasion. And, of course, you don't have to go any further than the summer of love in 2020 for domestic violence. So the state of Texas is completely, totally, and wholly within its right to stop the invasion of unvetted individuals from all over planet Earth. Second is Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the Constitution, acts requiring consent of Congress. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops, or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war, listen carefully, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Well, the open border, the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, the wave of violence, and the chaos that's been created is more than sufficient to justify activization of Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and the Guarantee Clause, Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. Second part of the problem, according to Gibbons, and based on what we're seeing today, is confiscatory taxes. What we're witnessing is the destruction of the middle class. It's being destroyed in a vice between taxes and inflation. The authoritarian enemy of a free society is faith, particularly Christianity, confiscatory taxes. Excuse me 1 second here. Well, Fiona's finally out of the room again. I apologize. Confiscatory taxes and destruction of the middle class and the quote-unquote small businessman. Best example I can give you is COVID. What did they do? Can't go to church, can't be with your family over the holidays. Number 2, you can't operate a small business. Now, you can go to Costco, or you can go to Walmart, or you can go to Target, but you can't go to the corner grocery store or the small restaurant. So this is what's been happening. It can't be denied. This is not a coincidence. The third thing, of course, is moral decay. And the best way to destroy the society is to destroy the nuclear family. And the nuclear family is based on not only the individuals involved, but their interrelationship, a husband, a wife, and children. So what do? They want to destroy gender by making it fluid. That's what the entire trans movement is about. It's crystal clear, once again, if you understand the hard left in this country and understand that they hate the Constitution, they hate our system of federalism. We get up every day to live our lives, go to work, raise a family. They get up every day to change the status quo. That's their job. So they are basically pursuing their objectives, and we are in the position of reacting after the fact. And that's where we find ourselves in this country. Now, what does all of this have to do with trusts? I will be getting to that. There is also the introduction, something called neuro-linguistic programming, which is basically defined as saying things in such a way that you know the general public is going to take it to mean one thing when you, in fact, mean something totally differently. I'll give you a few examples. The first example I will give you is our immigration system is broken. Our immigration system is not broken. The Trump years proved that. What they mean is that they want amnesty, they want open borders. These are globalists. So the American border has basically been erased by these people. Another example of that would be when they say the border is closed. You know, it bothers me that so many of these congressmen and senators that are interviewing members of the administration, when they say the border is closed, they don't ask the lawyer questions. Sir, please, or ma'am, please define the word closed so that the American people understand that they don't mean what we think. To me, closed means illegal immigrants are not coming into this country. That's not what they mean. What they mean is we're letting anyone in that wants to come in, and we've created a system to matriculate these people around the country. As a matter of fact, Biden just this week complained and said that the Congress has not given him the power to close the border. And finally, the reporter said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, we need the judges in place to litigate these migrants. No, that's not a closed border. That's an open border. Biden had the power to issue 94 executive orders to reverse Trump policies and open the border, and now he's telling you he doesn't have the authority to do that. Of course he has the authority to do that, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants an open border. They're losing the black and Hispanic vote. They need people that are coming from totalitarian nations who've never experienced freedom, who are going to vote, in their view, their way. They brag all the time about turning Texas blue. How are they going to turn Texas blue? They're going to turn Texas blue by an influx of individuals that are not native-born Americans. And Texas has finally had enough of it. And so pursuant to Article 1, Section 10 and Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, they're putting an end to it. This is going to get ugly, but if this goes to the Supreme Court, and that's what the feds don't want, they will lose. The Constitution's clear. The last thing is, we hear it all the time, ad nauseum, saving our democracy. Well, we have to put a lie to that, because it's the most absurd thing they say. First of all, we are not a democracy. We're a constitutional representative republic. And the difference between a democracy and a republic is huge. After the Constitutional Congress finally created our government, it was Benjamin Franklin, walking down the street one day, shortly after the Constitutional Convention had completed its work, and said, "Sir, what have you given us?" And Franklin responded, "A republic if you can keep it." Now, that was a very astute response, because what he was saying is historically republics tend to divert or revert into authoritarian, even tyrannical governments. And what he was saying was, I hope that we can, succeed against the tide of history with regard to the fate of republics. Well, even though the United States is one of the youngest countries in the world, we have the longest standing uninterrupted republic, 240 years. But it's under peril right now. And it's precisely the people that say saving our democracy. They're not constitutionalists, and they don't want a constitutional representative republic. They want a one-party social democracy. And how do they accomplish this? Well, let's look at the things that they support. They want to limit the First Amendment, and they cite, quote-unquote, hate speech. Now, these are the people they call people they disagree with deplorable, irredeemable, white supremacists, racists, homophobes, xenophobes, transphobes. They call us every name in the book. They also want to eliminate the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment has been challenged more than all other amendments combined. But the Second Amendment is clear. The right to keep and bear arms, meaning to possess and to carry, shall not be infringed. Well, they can't get around that language, so they try every which way they can, and they continue to fail. They also completely and totally ignore the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, and one of the examples of that is their insistence on the central bank digital currency. A central bank digital currency, by definition, eliminates the Fourth Amendment to privacy and the Fifth Amendment to due process, because they're claiming, well, if we create a digital currency, we possess it. It's ours. Therefore, we can create limitations to it. As opposed to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, which says we'll create a people's currency, not a quote-unquote government currency that they quote-unquote let us use. And then, of course, there's the 10th Amendment and federalism, meaning anything not specifically delegated to the federal government falls to the states and the people. Now, a good example of that would be the Roe v. Wade, which was finally, after all of this time, overturned. It's very simple. Abortion is found nowhere in the Constitution. Therefore, the federal government's not in a position to do what they did vis-a-vis Roe v. Wade. So it falls to the states and the people. So if they want to save our democracy, how democratic can it be other than to allow the people of the several states to decide for themselves the issue of abortion? But, of course, that's not what they're about, even though they say they are. They want a one centralized government, one size fits all. The problem they have is that the Constitution, and again, the reason I'm discussing this is because this is where our trust falls. The Constitution is a contract between the people and the government. And as Justice Scalia loved to say, the Constitution says what it says. It doesn't say what it doesn't say. So an individual say the Constitution is a living, breathing document. That's flat out BS. It is a contract. It says what it says. It doesn't say what it doesn't say. If you want to amend the Constitution of the United States, there is a rigorous protocol within the document itself that was established in order for that to happen. It cannot be done by fiat. It cannot be done by ignoring the law. And it certainly cannot be done by attacking individuals who expect the federal government to honor this contract. So what have these people done? They want to limit your First Amendment rights. They want to eliminate the Second Amendment. They want to eliminate the Electoral College, which is the manner in which we determine who our president and vice president are. They want to eliminate the filibuster in the Senate. Now, the House membership is based on population, but the Senate is based on equal participation and representation by all of the states. The House is a body of emotion. The Senate is supposed to be the body of reason. So what do they want to do? They want to eliminate the filibuster, minority rights within the Senate. And that is their way to try to create democracy. Again, we are a republic. So these are the things that we're dealing with right now. And the reason I bring these things up is because these things are more important than the 10 million of us that happen to have currencies. These things are more important than the benefits we enjoy by establishing a family asset protection trust and assigning our currencies to that trust before we acquire this wealth. These things are important for every American citizen. So I want to talk just briefly about our trust package in view of how, as an American citizen, it will benefit you, not just how it will benefit you as someone that holds currencies or any asset for that matter that you think is going to appreciate substantially in value. Benefits such as these: by establishing this trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That means that everything you own and everything you hold and everything you enjoy in your life is private. It's no one else's business. And the only way the trust can be pierced is someone can go to court and show cause, meaning they can provide evidence to a court that you have in some way defrauded them. The second thing this trust will do is allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny. You will receive earnings from the trust, but all of business activities will occur within the trust. So if there is an issue, the IRS will be dealing with the trust itself, not with you. Third is pre-RV gifting. Many individuals that do have currencies or are people of means and have other wealth like to gift things to their family and friends. But by gifting to them through the trust, in other words, allowing the individual a life estate, allowing them to utilize that wealth or that asset during their life, it's still within the trust and under your control. So it's the best of both worlds. The fourth benefit: this trust, once you pass away, will allow your entire estate to avoid the cost and delay of probate and preserve your privacy and avoid the federal estate tax. The tax is the federal government that would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. The federal estate tax under current law can be as high as 65% of the entire estate. And remember, the estate that you accumulate was accumulated over your lifetime with after-tax earnings. So you earned an income, you paid taxes on that income. You invested that money, you paid taxes on the gain. You purchased assets with that money, you paid sales tax. And after all of that taxation, the net estate that you've accumulated could now be taxed as much as 65%, unless you can avoid probate. How do you do that? Put your assets in trust. Lastly, the trust will protect you from future bad acts, whether intentional or not, after you've acquired this wealth. So this trust does a great many things, certainly for those of us that have currencies, certainly for those of us that are already of substantial means, certainly for anyone that has an asset that increases substantially in value. But it's also an indispensable tool for any American citizen who is sitting back and watching a federal government do everything in its power to strip us of our constitutional unalienable rights. And this is why I hope anyone listening to this call will at least contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in any way. There's a lot more I could say, but I'm going to go ahead and cut this call off. My phone keeps beeping because individuals keep calling, because a lot of individuals in the last few weeks have decided that they want to get their trust enforced because the Iraqi dinar could, I repeat, could begin its revaluation process at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it short. However, we will go to a Q&A. Very briefly, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold assigned currencies and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one gift subtrust, which is an optional subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts who hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. A trust package of this nature could easily cost as much as $10,000, but when we decided to market it to denarians on a mass marketed basis, we've reduced the cost to $3,000. You pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500. That's not possible. We do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, and then the balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. But we will do everything we can to help you both pre- and post-RV understand why you need to establish this trust package, how to fund the trust, how to manage the trust, how you procure use of the financial assets in the trust and all of the homes, cars, boats, etc., that are in trust. So that's basically what I wanted to discuss for today. I know it's a little bit different call. I know we got into a little bit of history there, but I need to create that backdrop for individuals, whether you have currencies or not, because as a student of history, I know that the mistake we make is we don't tend to understand the moment that we are in. But we are in precarious times right now, and a civil war has already begun between the authoritarian members of our federal government and American citizens who are merely trying to live their lives and exercise the constitutional rights. And once again, the one thing that any American can do to ensure to protect themselves, their wealth, their privacy, is to create a family asset protection trust and place all of their assets within that trust. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Q&A here and see if anyone might have any questions that they'd like to pose. Okay, if there are any questions, I'll wait a few moments for anyone that would like to call. Again, you can contact us either by email or phone if you'd like to get our initial trust package. Our email address is trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC @gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. Again, if you'd like to get our initial no-obligation package, contact us by email or phone. The package does contain everything if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. Wow, we got some questions here, so let's go ahead and get started. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Praveen from New York. I have a question. The conflict with Iran, the U.S., could that delay the RV?
Theoretically, it could, but I don't think so, because I almost put that on a separate track. Obviously, any form of chaos in any given country is not good, and there could be a ripple effect, but I honestly don't think it's going to affect. As a matter of fact, you could make the argument that this might hasten the change in their exchange rate, because by doing so, there are a lot of things Iraq can do that it cannot do with the program rate.
Okay, yeah, because I know that Biden wanted to, retaliate against Iran, and that's the thing here. What if Iraq gets sucked into it?
Well, everything he's done thus far has been a pinprick, too little, too late. I think there was 163 different drone attacks for which he did nothing. Incidentally, for those of you that may not remember, where did Iran get the drone technology? Supposedly, during the Obama administration, one of our drones crashed in Iran. Well, what happened a couple of days later? They show a video of that drone in perfect condition, brag about having the drone, and they're going to reverse engineer it. So now Iran has drone capabilities, which was given to them by the Obama administration. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Our next caller is area code 619. That's 619. Eddie, how you doing?
Excellent, Jim. How are you, sir?
Okay, by the way, before you ask your question, I believe you posed a question last week to me about exchanging currencies in a different Federal Reserve district. According to our attorney, that's fine. If it's a SWIFT bank inside the United States, it shouldn't be a problem.
So you can literally exchange any state. So if you live in California, you could go to Florida.
He sees no reason why you wouldn't be able to. Can't you establish an account in a different state, in a different district?
Well, yeah, you can. I just had heard early on from other sources that you needed to reside in your area at least 6 months to, if you lived in, say, California and you were in that zone, you need to live there 6 months or longer in order to exchange in that area, that zone. So you couldn't run over to.
If that were true, so you moved to California, you've been there 60 days, the dinar revalues, you have 10 million dinar, you walk into a California bank with 10 million dinar to exchange it, and they say, oh, gee, we can't do that, you got to go back to Albuquerque. I don't think so.
I hope that's the case, but, you know.
I do too. Well, the way that the lawyers explained it to me was they say that there is no such thing as a jurisdictional limitation. So unless there's a rule or regulation out there that they're not privy to, that shouldn't be a problem at all. I don't necessarily know why someone would want to go to a different area anyway, but our lawyers see no reason why that limitation should exist.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, Jim, thanks so much for following up. Appreciate that.
You got another one for me?
My question is this. We seem really close, but then yet it seems to just keep getting pushed out to a later date. Is there any particular reason why we're just getting pushed out over and over and over again? It's like a teaser. We're there one day, and then, nope, sorry, it's going to be March now. It's going to be April. Before we know it, we're going to be in December again, all over again.
Well, I don't think that'll happen because the one difference now is the Iraqi citizen has to utilize their own currency to program rate as opposed to the U.S. dollar. So I think there's going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth and screaming in the streets if they have to operate on a program rate with no other currency but their own currency. So, I mean, are they that deaf, dumb, and blind and stupid? Possibly. They're government bureaucrats. And there's a lot of layers here. There's the Iraq's central bank. There's the parliament. Then there's all the international agencies, the IMF, the BIS, the WTO. So there's a lot of people involved. And there are the individuals for their own reasons that don't want this to happen. But everything they're doing, they've just painted themselves into a corner. Bad things are going to happen to them if they don't get this done, in my opinion.
Well, I hope you're right, Jim. I like everyone else, want it to happen soon, but it just seems to get delayed. But, hey, in God's good time, I'm sure it will happen. So, yeah, I agree with that completely. Prayer's in order for sure. But if you just do the math, I mean, they have nowhere else to go. What are they going to do? They can't operate without a currency based on what they've done. And why would other countries enter into these multilateral, multi-billion-dollar international contracts to do this work, knowing that Iraq does not have the USD to pay them? They have to be operating with the assumption or with the assurance that their currency is going to revalue. So if, let's say it doesn't happen this year, all of these contracts are null and void. They're unfundable. So, it doesn't make sense. They wouldn't be using a second set of books to pay them?
Well, with what? With what? The yen?
That's why.
The ruble? What are they going to pay them with?
An in-rate, country in-rate, exchange rate higher so that they get paid? I don't know, Jim. I'm asking.
Yeah, I just don't.
I just can't understand why they continue. If everything's as you say it is, which is, seems to be true, God, it's just like, why not pull the trigger?
Well, let me qualify what I'm saying. It's entirely possible they screw this up and the country's a failed state. Yeah, that's an option. That could happen.
Yeah.
That could happen. What happens to a family that overextends themselves? They buy things they can't afford. At some point, what happens? They have to declare bankruptcy. They have to give something up. They lose their credit score. Their car gets repossessed. Something's going to happen. So what I'm saying is based on the things that they've done, they've got two options.
increase the value of their currency or suffer the consequences. That's where we are.
Gotcha. Jim, I always appreciate your intellect. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you.
You take care. Take care. Bye-bye now.
All right.
Our next caller is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hi. How are you?
You're breaking up, whoever this is.
Okay. Can you hear me?
No? Hello?
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. This is Diane from Michigan.
Yes.
2 questions. The first question is this. Okay, if you have an insurance policy, could you put that into the trust?
Okay, you're breaking up again, but I did hear the question. First, congratulations on the national championship. And second, yes, you can place insurance policy in the trust. What you're actually placing in there, though, would be the equity within, say, a life insurance policy. But, yes, you can do that.
Okay. Next question is this.
Okay, you're breaking up again. I don't know what's going on, but I can't. No.
Hello? Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Are you in a mine shaft or something?
No. It's just sometimes the cell towers and stuff, we have problems. But, okay, say the person is receiving Social Security.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Now I can. Go.
Okay, we'll talk quick.
Your question.
What if a person is receiving Social Security? How does that affect the revaluation as far as them exchanging?
Doesn't affect it at all. Your Social Security check comes directly to you.
Okay, so you don't have to.
You wouldn't put it. You can't put. You're not going to put an annuity payment from the government in trust. If they're
no,
paying
what I'm saying, how do you, would that affect you as far as receiving Social Security?
No, the only thing it would affect is the taxable portion of the Social Security. If all an individual is living on is Social Security, there'd be little tax or no tax. If that person overnight has a net worth of $10 million and is getting $100,000 a year or more income, then a substantial portion of that Social Security will now be taxable. And by the way, guess who authored the law to tax Social Security? Joe Biden. It never ends. It never ends. You broke up again. I lost you again.
Hello?
No. Well, unfortunately, she's gone now. I'm getting up. So if you can still hear me, give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay, Diane?
Okay.
If you can hear me. Take
okay.
care. Bye-bye now.
All right.
Okay, our next caller is area code 209. That's 209. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Jim. This is Sheila in Oklahoma. I have a couple of questions. It kind of mirrors what the other gentleman was asking. I think his name was Eddie. Given the information that's been out there and in our face, the travel to Davos, the Baghdad trade fair, Soudani basically saying he's going to be the master, or Iraq's going to be the master or the father of the dollar. What is your, gut? I know you can't give us a rate or a date, but a lot of people, I think that's maybe why some are getting discouraged. It does seem like the can is being kicked, but my understanding is this might be tied to other countries or baskets. What does your gut tell you? Do you think it's a February event? Do you think it's March? Do you think that the current possibilities of war is something that can stop it, as he mentioned, or would it in fact accelerate? Because they keep talking about a shortened window. So basically, it's a statement and a question. If you can kind of give us some feedback.
Okay.
The rate to me is interesting.
This is my personal opinion. It could happen tomorrow. But, as I said, there are a lot of layers to this, and there are a lot of individuals with different agendas. So based on everything they've done, the table has been set. The issue is, when are they going to serve the meal? And if the table's been set and we're all seated, then theoretically the meal should be served. Now, if the meal's not served, something's going on in the kitchen that we're not privy to. So there's a lot of layers here. But again, what they've done in the last 12 months is absolutely Herculean and makes absolutely no sense unless they're going to change the rate of the dinar. So to me, the only holdout, there's two possibilities. One are bad players, and they're fewer in number every day. And two, it's just the bureaucratic crap. And all we have to do is look at our own dysfunctional government to see what happens when you get a bunch of people running a country who couldn't run a lemonade stand. I mean, if you look at Biden and his administration, it's absolutely laughable. It's the Keystone Cops. It's frighteningly, I mean, if it wasn't so scary, it'd be funny. But it's a real comedy act. It's Saturday Night Live over there 7 days a week. They just don't know what they're doing, or they're trying to do something that they ought not be doing, and it's not working. So this is where we are. But in my opinion, it could happen tomorrow, and in my opinion, it should have happened yesterday. Right.
Okay, the second part of my question is, who makes that decision? A lot of people, again, there's chatter everywhere. We all hear it. Many are saying that the U.S. Treasury is holding it up. My understanding is they can't control it, but is it the IMF? Is it the BIS? Is it Iraq themselves? Who is controlling or pulling this trigger? Do you know from your Kuwait experience who made that happen?
Yes, in my opinion, it's up to the central bank. If the central bank calls all these agencies and says to them, we are going to be 1-to-1 with the dollar within the next 15 days, that's in my opinion the way it'll happen. They're going to call and say, we've done what you've asked of us and then some. There's some things that you still want done. I'm sorry, we don't think they're relevant. We don't think they're necessary right now. This is our country. This is our currency. Basel IV compliant dictates that this thing be worth far more than 1-to-1 with the dollar. But within the next 15 days, we're going to begin at 1-to-1 with the dollar. That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Sure. I wish I could give you a date and a rate, but then that just wouldn't be right, and I would be wrong.
No, I agree. And that's not what I was asking for.
I know. I know. But you'd be surprised who, I get that all the time. No one wants this more than me, I can assure you. Because of my age, because of how long I've been in this, because of how many currencies I have, because I got a little tiny taste of it with the Kuwaiti dinar, but it was such a small, the leverage was huge, but it was minuscule compared to the leverage here. Okay, I got 7 children, I got 9 grandchildren, I got 1 in the oven, I got things I want to do, and it ain't this.
Right, okay. And when it devalued, it was at 322. That was
exactly.
According to history, it was based on their oil. So now they have other resources. It was based on the price of the oil, and remember, the country was a wreck. Now the country's in far better shape, and we've had 20 years of inflation, and we have the current price of a barrel. So, 322 to me is the floor. It's not the ceiling. But again, that's me. Okay. Okay, and then last but not least, the basket. People keep talking about Vietnam, Venezuela. I know that there's been news that they're lifting restrictions and sanctions. I know that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about the dinar. But do you think that could be stalling this, that they're waiting for Vietnam or waiting for other countries to be ready to go, hand in hand? Do you think that's a possibility?
Certainly it's a possibility, but to be honest with you, I think they're all just revving their engines watching the dinar, because I think that it's a rock that's especially positioned to initiate all of this. I think it's the catalyst for all of the others. And they have their other issues that they have to deal with, too. Vietnam has to sever its relationship really with China to proceed, because and the funny thing about this is in a backhanded way, Basel compliance hurts China, because China really got enriched by undervaluing its currency in order to corner the global trade market, and they're not going to be able to do that, when all of the currencies are based on an objective valuation based on a country like China. I mean, it's a criminal organization, and the United States is doing its best to follow suit. So, this is going to change a lot of things. That's another reason why they know once the dinar goes, the floodgates are going to open, and for their own selfish and political reasons, they don't want that. It's not a coincidence that Shabibi was ready to go back in 2012, and Maliki and Obama didn't want it to happen, and it didn't. And, of course, if it happens with Biden, of course, he's going to go out and take bows as though he had something to do with it. And is he going to use the money to reduce the deficit, or is he going to use the money for his Green New Deal and all the other nonsense they have in store for us? So, we'll just that's why we need to take ours. We need to protect ours. We need to keep it away from them. We need to provide for ourselves, our families, the charitable and socially responsible things we want to do, and exempt ourselves from the nonsense that they have planned for the money.
Do you think them changing the U.S. ambassador, what was it, last week in Iraq, do you think that because she had experience with previous countries' revaluation, do you think that is playing a part?
She had experience with Kuwait. Yes, absolutely. That's a good move. I probably shouldn't say this, but if the United States Treasury is necessary, and that means Biden, if he does it, it's not, in my opinion, it's not going to be for the right reason. It's going to be for a politically expedient reason, in my opinion. I just don't like the guy. I mean, what the heck, that should be pretty obvious by anyone who listens to our calls. But I have a First Amendment right, and I'm exercising it. And if Google and all these other ones want to try to minimize our exposure, we'll just do the best we can to circumvent it, and it is what it is. But, when in history have the censors ever been the good guys? So it is what it is, So there we are. But you're right. That was good. Her appointment was good, and that's a good move. It's another thing that indicates we might be closer than further away. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 301. That's 301. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. It's Larry from Maryland. A lot of questions got answered, but I guess what I would ask, I assume there is no one reason that nothing can move forward. With them operating in the program rate, how long, can they operate before they either fail or have to revalue? I mean, how much time with their current structure can they take before they...
Their problem is the citizen of the country can no longer utilize the dollar for the routine exchange of the U.S. dollar for goods and services, meaning they're left to use their currency, the dinar. Well, that can't continue at a program rate for them. They don't have purchasing power. Now, they can utilize the dollar for medical expenses and to travel, but then they need to exchange their own currency, which is at 13.10, 13.20 for $1 US. So that depletes their wealth there as well. So, the protests in the green zone are going to start again if they don't do something soon. Now, could they screw it up? Yes. Anyone's been involved in this for any length of time knows they've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory repeatedly. So that could happen. I'm just saying it makes absolutely no sense. Economically, mathematically, politically, it makes no sense. So, we are where we are.
Mm-hmm. You've actually got two aspects then, right? You've got the citizens have no purchasing power, but at the same time, I'm understanding a lot of businesses and countries want to invest in Iraq, and if they're not going to allow that to happen, then that starts to fall apart, right?
Like I said, if in my opinion, if they don't change the exchange rate, they're going to be a failed country because they're operating with 115 to 120 billion USD, and they got to fund their budget with that, fund all of the multinational contracts for all of the things we discussed. And it's just, and it's just not enough. It's just not enough.
There was apparently they recovered a lot of stolen dinars recently.
Correct.
Is that a serious issue of the illegal, whatever, the black market of dinars out there, or can they just get around that?
Part of their concern was the revaluation of the dinar in the hands of certain nefarious individuals is a bad thing. Then they've recovered a lot of it. The question is, if 5% of all the dinars are unaccounted for and could potentially be in the hands of some nefarious characters, is that enough to stop the revaluation of the currency entirely? I say no. So, again, once they told their citizens you can't use the USD, it's the point of no return. The analogy I gave is that it went down a one-lane, one-way street. They can't stop, they can't pull over, and they can't turn around. They got to go forward.
Mm-hmm. And the question to come up, is this inflationary at all for Iraq, or they are just better off with an actual currency that is competitive?
I don't think it's inflationary for them. I think it reduces inflation for them. It reduces the money supply, which is a major factor to inflation, money supply versus goods and services. A 25,000 dinar note's now a 25 dinar note in country. A $10,000 dinar note's 10 dinar. You know where it's inflationary? In the United States, where I walk into the bank with 10 million dinar, and assuming 322, that's $32.25 million that hits my bank. Well, that's inflationary. That's the money supply. So it's going to be inflationary in the countries where citizens are holding the dinar that they purchased at a program rate, and now it's being exchanged at a Basel IV compliant rate.
Thank you.
Certainly. Okay, bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. It's got to be Doug Reeves.
It is. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
How you doing? Sure.
A lot of interesting questions and comments. Excuse me. I don't usually pay much attention to Davos because I just the process that they're in and the people that are involved I don't agree with. But for some reason this year I did. And I did so because I wanted to see if I could mentally have any logical links to those people and basically what's happening in Iraq. And I came to the conclusion that it's the puppeteers of the world that are basically making sure that all the ducks are in a row so that when this happens, they get all their money. And I truly believe that. I don't think that it is entirely up to the CBI to make this decision independently. When I watch those people, and especially with the Iraq PM up there, I thought, this is it. This is the club. This is the ones who are pulling the strings. And when they are all satisfied that they have the control levers in their hands, they'll make sure that it goes off and they get paid. Not to say that we won't, but I don't think that Iraq and its ability to make its own decisions is in the power of the people who run Iraq. I think it's in the power of the people for like those who are attending Davos. That's my that's my point. You mentioned earlier who is actually controlling this, and I think it's the not so nice world elite, as they call themselves, that are behind the trigger date for this.
Well, let's assume hypothetically that that's correct, that in fact it's a group like Davos. Well, Davos just invited Soudani and Iraq to speak, so they obviously feel like it's time for something to happen. Remember, that the World, the Economic Forum, they have a saying, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Of course, the truth is they'll own everything and they'll be happy. So they're just as interested in the Iraqi dinar revaluing too, because it's going to enrich them not only personally, but in terms of their global influence as well. So whether the CBI is involved somewhat or not at all or completely, or whether Davos and those international groups are really what's pulling the strings in the World Economic Forum, well, they're inviting Iraq in, so obviously there's a reason for that, isn't there?
I agree with you, and I think that the time frame is in their hands. I don't know how and why or when they're going to make that decision, but I don't think that it's going to happen until they all start nodding their heads yes. That's my point. Because there was, some concern, and you can hear the angst in some of the callers' voices about when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And from that perspective, I do think that we're closer than we've ever been. But like you and I and others who have been in it 18 years or more, we've learned to just basically say, it's going to happen when it happens. And of course, I would like to see it because I'm of the age that you are, and I'd like to be doing other things myself.
Right, right. Well, the only response I can give to that is the only difference between now and what we've been experiencing for the last 20 years is that they've done things now that if they don't complete the process, they're going to really, really hurt themselves. So, and I say the key thing I keep saying is once they outlawed the use of the dollar for the exchange of goods and services for the citizen in country, that's the point of no return. The only question then becomes how long can the citizens stand that before they stand and say, hell no, get this done, or this is a parliamentary system, there's going to be a no confidence vote, we're going to kick you all in the street and start all over again.
Well, from that perspective, they ran on a dual currency scenario. They could either buy it in dollars or they could buy it in dinars. And if they bought it in dinars, they would, and if a loaf of bread cost $1, they would have had to cough up 1,320 dinars to do it. So from the perspective of, are they in a pickle, if you will? They can still buy the things that they were going to buy previously. They just can't buy it with $1. They now have to buy it with 1,300 Iraqi dinars.
That's my point. That's my point. That's what's changed. That's what's different. There's no escape hatch. That's what's different in country. So that's where we are.
About 6 pellets to OG and 2.5.
Just a second. Go ahead. Anyway, I suppose it's something we could talk about a long time, but it is a little frustrating. I have empathy for what they want, what the people want.
Let me tell you who's sitting back watching all of this is Baghdadi. All right, and he's got his people under control. They're not rioting in the streets. They're not making threats, not doing any of that. But this can't continue. They've been told to hold their dinar. They've been told this was going to happen. They were told they were going to be having purchasing power. They were told the dinar was going to be the coin of the realm, and that they were going to be a world power, and we're going to be doing all of these things for the infrastructure, and we've negotiated all these contracts. Well, now they have to deliver, or it's their ass, pardon my French. That's where we are.
Well, yeah, you're right. They can get some internal pressure going.
I'm not giving you a guarantee they're going to follow through. I'm just saying if they don't this time, they're in trouble. There are consequences for not following through at this point.
It's just a matter of how long they'll wait.
Well,
right?
I'm not, well, of course, but like I said, every day that don't have the use of the dollar, they're expending what currency they do have. And they have to go to the banks to set up accounts. And then, of course, we have the HCL payments, all this other stuff that they're going to have to make. They've got to get this done. The only solution, final solution, is an exchange rate. a real effective exchange rate. Short of that, they're going to have problems, and it's not going to take long for that to manifest itself.
Well, I hope we don't have another call next week.
But if we do, we'll hash it out again.
Well, I mean, if it pops between now and then, there definitely will be a call. It'll be a sayonara call. You know. Anyway, listen, thanks for calling, Doug. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, Doug was our last caller for this evening. Again, thanks for listening to the call. I know we went a little different direction today, got a little political today, but it had to be done. I don't care if YouTube doesn't like it. It is what it is. Again, when we do post this call for replay, as a general, not only this week but in the future, if you don't see our call posted at the top, it doesn't mean that it wasn't posted. It very well may be you need to scroll down because YouTube is playing their stupid little games because they're children, and they only want to hear what they want to hear, and they only want people to say what they want said. So that's the situation. Again, if you're interested in our trust package, I did give you our contact information. Go to our website, which is Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC at gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. We'll be happy to send you our initial package, although time may be running out. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next week, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. God bless and have a great week.